Breaking news out of Las Vegas. The Raiders' quarterback situation just took a major turn, and it's got fans buzzing, analysts speculating, and the AFC West on high alert. A bold statement has emerged. If you've got a quarterback, you've got a chance. But could Geno Smith really be the man to lead the silver and black back to relevance? And wait till you hear what NFL legend Lincoln Kennedy said about Geno, a comparison that might just blow your mind. Stick around, because what's unfolding could change the entire narrative for the Raiders in 2025. For years now, the Las Vegas Raiders have been stuck in a painful loop. Quarterback after quarterback, none could truly claim control of the huddle. Last season, it was a carousel of Gardner Minshew, Aidan O'Connell, and Desmond Ridder. Not once did the Raiders walk into a game with a clear QB advantage. Not once. But this year, something's different. Enter Geno Smith. The seasoned veteran brings more than just experience, he brings belief. Coming off a successful stint under Pete Carroll in Seattle, Geno's poised, confident, and finally being given the keys to a system that could maximize his strengths. During a recent conversation in Texas, NFL insider John McClain emphasized just how significant this acquisition could be for Las Vegas. For the first time in years, the Raiders might actually walk into battle with the better quarterback more often than not. And if that's true, this team isn't just rebuilding, it's reloading. Wait, before we go further, if you're a true Raider fan or just love football talk that cuts through the noise, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video and tap the bell icon so you never miss an update on the silver and black. This is your home for everything Raiders, and trust me, it's about to get intense. Let's dive back into the action. Breaking down the matchups 2025 schedule sneak peek. Let's get real. Last year, not once did the Raiders have a quarterback advantage. 0 out of 17 games. This year, a stunning reversal. Geno could have the upper hand in 9 out of 17 matchups. Let's break down a few key ones. Week 1 versus Patriots, Drake May versus Geno Smith. Geno has the edge. The rookie's talented, but not battle-tested. Week 4 versus Bears, Caleb Williams may be the future, but today, Geno's experience wins. Week 5 versus Colts, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, the nod still goes to Geno. Week 6 versus Titans, rookie QB Cam Ward faces a seasoned vet in Smith. Advantage, Las Vegas. That's just a taste of how this season could unfold. It's not about predicting wins and losses. It's about something deeper, control at the most important position in football. And in 2025, for the first time in a long time, the Raiders have it. Geno Smith's path to becoming the guy in Vegas. Let's take a deeper look into the 2025 season, and more specifically, how often Geno Smith might be the better quarterback on the field. Last section, we counted 9 games where Geno clearly had the edge. But now let's break down the remaining key matchups, the ones that raise eyebrows, stir debate, and just might decide the Raiders' season. Week 11 Raiders versus Cowboys. This one was tricky. Geno Smith versus Dak Prescott. Now, on paper, many would give the nod to Dak. But let's be honest, the Cowboys are a wild card every single season. You never know what version of Prescott will show up, the elite passer or the guy overwhelmed in big moments. Geno, on the other hand, might not have the flash, but he's steady, composed, and hungry to prove he belongs. Edge, slightly Geno. Because by week 11, this Raiders offense could be firing on all cylinders, and we'll really know what Geno's made of. Week 12 Raiders versus Browns. This matchup is wrapped in mystery. Who even starts at quarterback for Cleveland? Deshaun Watson? Unlikely. His future in the league looks more uncertain than ever. Joe Flacco? Past his prime. Kenny Pickett? Inconsistent. Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders? Talented but unproven. With that much instability, it's almost unfair. Geno gets the nod here, no hesitation. Week 16 Raiders at Texans. Here's a genuine toss-up. Geno Smith versus C.J. Stroud. Now, C.J. took the league by storm as a rookie, but reports are already surfacing about a potential sophomore slump. Meanwhile, Geno will be in full rhythm by this stage of the season. Still, it's close. But with experience, leadership, and a solid supporting cast, Geno gets the slight advantage for now. This game could say a lot about the playoff picture. Week 17 Raiders versus Giants, Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, or rookie Jackson Dart. No one knows who the Giants will roll out under center, or even who the head coach might be by then. It's chaos in New York. Meanwhile, Geno Smith remains the steady hand in Vegas. Verdict: Raiders have the edge at QB again. The final count: 9 out of 17 games with a QB edge, 9 games where the Raiders will walk in with a better quarterback. That might not sound like much, until you remember that last season, that number was 0. This isn't just about having a competent quarterback. It's about finally having an edge at the most important position in sports. Rich Gannon-like? Lincoln Kennedy's bold comparison? Here's where things get really interesting. Raiders legend Lincoln Kennedy recently spoke about Geno Smith on the air and dropped a name that made fans sit up in their seats. Geno has a chance to be Rich Gannon-like. Not Rich Gannon, the 2002 league MVP, but Rich Gannon-like. Let that sink in. Lincoln isn't saying Geno's going to win MVP, but he is suggesting that Geno could be that guy for Las Vegas. The same way John Gruden once gave Gannon the keys to the team, the current Raiders regime has told Geno, "You're the guy. This is your team." And that matters. It's the kind of belief that transforms a career. Lincoln explained it perfectly. It's not about flashy stats or media hype. It's about fit. Geno finally has a coach who believes in him. There's no quarterback controversy. No pressure from behind. No rookie waiting in the wings. Just trust. And sometimes that's all a quarterback needs. Rich Gannon didn't take the league by storm right away, but with the right scheme, support, and stability, he built a legacy. Geno now has that same opportunity. If you're going to hand the keys to a franchise quarterback, you better build the right vehicle around him. And that's exactly what the Las Vegas Raiders are doing. Geno Smith doesn't need to play like Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't need to run like Lamar Jackson. What he does need to do is be Geno Smith, a poised, disciplined, smart quarterback who understands his strengths and doesn't try to be someone he's not. Because in football, if you have a quarterback, you have a chance. Creating a system that fits Geno, it all starts with the scheme, and from what we're seeing out of Raiders camp, the coaching staff is tailoring the offense around Geno's skill set, not forcing him into someone else's mold. That means short to intermediate throws, strong timing-based routes, balanced run support, and giving Geno the green light to be efficient, not flashy. This offense has firepower. Weapons are in place. The playbook is evolving. Now it's all about putting the puzzle together. And for Geno, that means staying confident, staying smart, and leading the way without trying to do too much. The Gannon connection, a story worth hearing. Lincoln Kennedy recently shared a powerful story from his playing days, back when Rich Gannon first arrived in Oakland. At first, Kennedy wasn't fully sold on Gannon, but there was one game that changed everything, a matchup against the Jets. Gannon had dislocated or broken a finger. Most quarterbacks would play it safe, stay in the pocket, protect themselves. But Rich, he took off. He ran. He fought through pain. He led a late-game drive and delivered a comeback touchdown. And in that moment, Lincoln saw something special. That's when I realized, this guy's for real. Up until then, Gannon had always beaten the Raiders. Kennedy had faced him when Gannon was in Kansas City and Minnesota before that. But he never truly watched him, not like he did as a teammate. Once I saw his rhythm, his timing, I understood his game. Understanding the quarterback's rhythm. That's what the Raiders' offensive line needs to do now with Geno Smith. Every quarterback has their rhythm. Rich Gannon, for example, had what Lincoln described as a 3 Mississippi count. If no one was open by then, he was gone. He'd scramble, extend plays, and make defenses pay. For linemen, it's about recognizing that rhythm, getting in sync, knowing when to hold, when to release, when to expect the throw or prepare for a rollout. That chemistry doesn't come overnight. It comes from reps, trust, and feel. The spark of a drive, confidence, starts with one. Every successful drive begins with momentum, a crisp run, a perfect slant route, a well-executed play-action pass. And when the quarterback starts to feel it, the entire offense feeds off that energy. Lincoln put it best. When a quarterback walks into that huddle, guys look into his eyes. Does he control the moment? Does he own that huddle? That's where leadership shows up, not in speeches, in moments. A perfectly thrown ball in the flat, a laser on a dig route, a pump fake that freezes a safety before a deep shot. It builds belief. It silences doubt. And when you finish that drive with a score, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, that confidence spreads. The sideline erupts, the crowd feels it, and the team starts thinking, we've got something here. The heartbeat of an offense. It all starts with the center, the literal snap of the ball, but the spirit of every offense flows through the quarterback. If Geno plays with conviction, poise, and trust in the system, the Raiders have a real shot at building sustained momentum in 2025. Because when your quarterback believes, the rest of the team follows. And that, Raider Nation, is how you change a narrative. Trust, mobility, and leadership. Geno's critical challenge. When you're building something real in the NFL, something lasting, it starts with trust. And that's what Lincoln Kennedy's recent breakdown was all about. It wasn't just 5 minutes of analysis, it was 5 minutes of truth. And what he said about Rich Gannon's journey, it speaks directly to what Geno Smith is now stepping into. This isn't about comparing careers. This is about recognizing an opportunity. Geno isn't being asked to become Rich Gannon, but he's standing at the same fork in the road, a chance to lead, to earn belief, and to command the room. Gannon's respect wasn't given. He earned it. Lincoln recalled one particular moment that sealed it for him, a gritty, bruising game against the New York Jets. Gannon, with a busted finger, could have folded. Instead, he took over. Not with flashy throws, but with guts, decision-making, and just enough mobility to make defenders pay. That night, he led a comeback using his legs, his mind, and his toughness. That's when Lincoln knew Rich was for real. Until then, Gannon had always been the enemy, a problem for the Raiders when he wore Chiefs or Vikings colors. But once he joined the silver and black, everything changed. Now he's on our side? That's fantastic, Lincoln said. And from there, the foundation of a championship-level locker room was built. Understanding the QB's rhythm, a line that protects and believes. One of the most underrated dynamics in football is the chemistry between quarterback and offensive line. And it's not just about X's and O's, it's about rhythm. Lincoln remembered how, over time, he started to understand Gannon's internal clock. He called it the 3 Mississippi rule. If nothing opened up by then, Rich was out. Gone. Looking to extend the play. Not the fastest guy on the field, but mobile enough to move the chains. And smart enough to know when it was time to go. That's how offensive linemen learn, not from film, from feel. If the ball's not out and he's still looking, he's going to take off. I need to be ready for that. That's the same kind of trust Geno Smith needs to earn from his blockers now. Geno's mobility, not flashy, but functional. No, Geno isn't Lamar Jackson. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's not Jaden Daniels. But he does have enough mobility to make a defense uncomfortable. Enough to escape, extend, and create. And sometimes, that's all you need. Just the threat of movement is enough to keep a drive alive or shift the momentum. Lincoln made it clear. Geno can move when he needs to, and if he plays smart, if he plays within himself, that's a weapon. This isn't about designing an offense around Geno's legs. It's about recognizing that in key moments, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, he can get it himself. And those moments, they build belief. The locker room factor, commanding without speaking, earning respect in the locker room doesn't come from talk. It comes from action, from eye contact in the huddle, from how you carry yourself after a 3 and out, from how you bounce back after taking a hit. It's about presence. And Lincoln Kennedy described it perfectly. You know, a quarterback has it when the huddle locks in, eyes are focused, the energy shifts. When a drive starts clicking, when the QB hits a sharp pass to the flat, then follows it with a post over the middle, the entire team starts believing. You feel it. You hear it in the crowd. And most importantly, you see it in the players. That's what Rich Gannon brought. That's what Geno Smith now has a chance to create. The final piece, trust from within. Geno already has trust from the coaching staff. That's obvious. They didn't draft his replacement. They didn't bring in competition. They handed him the reins and said, "This is your team." But now the next step is just as important, earning the locker room's belief. And that doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the trenches, in film rooms, and on game day when you deliver in key moments. Gino doesn't have to become someone else. He just has to become the best version of himself consistently. And if he does, then this team has a real shot to become something more than expected. Raiders 2025, the top 3 storylines to watch closely. All across the NFL, the talk is heating up. With training camp just around the corner, rankings and storylines are flying everywhere, from top 5 quarterbacks to breakout rookies to the most volatile divisions in football. But if you're a true Raider Nation follower, there's a different kind of buzz building in Las Vegas. This isn't just about rankings. This is about identity. And when I sat down to reflect on the league's most compelling storylines, I couldn't ignore the 3 that are about to define the Raiders' 2025 season, both in training camp and deep into the regular grind. Let's break them down. Storyline #1, Ashton Jeanty, the rookie with all eyes watching. This is the one that hits hard right out the gate. Ashton Jeanty isn't just another draft pick. He's a statement, a spark, and maybe, just maybe, the future face of this offense. Before the Raiders ever called his name, Jeanty had already become one of the most talked about prospects in the draft cycle. Explosive runs, elite vision, and that tough, physical style made teams across the league circle his name on their draft boards. There were whispers. The Jaguars were interested. The Bears considered trading up. Even the Cowboys and Broncos had internal conversations about getting him. But at the end of the day, it was the Raiders, with the 6th overall pick, who made the move. And now, all eyes are on how Pete Carroll integrates him. Remember what Carroll did in Seattle with Marshawn Lynch? He didn't just unleash beast mode, he built a scheme around him. He weaponized toughness, aggression, and downhill running. Now, Jeanty brings a different style, smoother cuts, more dynamic in the passing game, but the potential? It's massive. And with Carroll leading the charge, the Raiders might just have found the next big-time backfield star. Storyline #2, can the Raiders create their identity? This one's bigger than any one player. The Raiders are caught between eras. They're building a new core, a new voice, and a new system. But here's the truth. A team without an identity can't survive in the NFL. And in 2025, the biggest challenge is deciding what kind of football team this is going to be. Are they physical? Are they methodical? Are they unpredictable? Are they defense first? Do they lean into Geno's strengths or ask him to do too much? Pete Carroll is known for culture. That's always been his strength. But culture without cohesion doesn't win games. That's why training camp isn't just about drills and installs, it's about message, tone, tempo. And if the Raiders can define that early, it will carry into September and beyond. Storyline #3, the Raiders versus the NFC East gauntlet. There's no easy path through the NFC East. The Eagles, the Cowboys, even Washington is unpredictable. And this season, the Raiders are going to have to go through that storm. One of the things people underestimate is how matchups can change seasons. Facing physical teams week after week, that takes a toll. Facing aggressive pass rushes, that exposes weak offensive lines. This storyline isn't just about wins and losses, it's about how the Raiders respond to pressure. Can Geno stay upright when Dallas brings the heat? Can Jeanty break loose against Philly's front seven? Can the secondary hold up when Washington starts airing it out? The answers to these questions might decide whether the Raiders are competing for a playoff spot in December or staring down another disappointing rebuild. Wrapping it all together, when people talk about 2025, they're going to mention quarterbacks, MVP races, and flashy rookies. But deep inside Raider Nation, we know the truth. This season is about more than just headlines. It's about whether a team that's been floating in the middle for too long can finally plant its feet and take a real step forward. And these 3 storylines? A rookie running back with sky-high expectations. A franchise searching for identity. A brutal schedule that tests character more than talent. They're not just topics of discussion. They're the pulse of what's coming. And Raider Nation better be ready. The three pillars of the Raiders' 2025 season. Let's talk about pressure. Let's talk about legacy. Because what the Raiders are stepping into this season is more than a schedule, it's a challenge to define who they are and where they're headed. And it starts with three core pillars that could shape the entire trajectory of 2025. Pillar 1, the Ashton Jeanty explosion, hype or history. The story begins with one name, Ashton Jeanty. A rookie with sky-high expectations, a fan base watching his every move, and a franchise daring to build around him. Pete Carroll has always believed in running the football, from USC days with Reggie Bush and Lendale White, to beast mode with Marshawn Lynch in Seattle. Carroll's philosophy hasn't changed: ground and pound, control the tempo, and dominate the trenches. And now, that responsibility falls squarely on the shoulders of a 21-year-old. Jeanty isn't just stepping into a backfield, he's stepping into a system that wants him to carry the identity of the team. The talk of Offensive Rookie of the Year isn't smoke, it's very real. Analysts, fans, and even veteran players are circling his name. But here's the thing, he doesn't need to be Barry Sanders. He doesn't need to be LaDainian Tomlinson. He just needs to be Ashton Jeanty, confident, tough, explosive, and consistent. If he becomes that guy, everything else on this offense opens up. Geno gets breathing room. Play action becomes deadly, and Chip Kelly's system begins to hum. But if Jeanty stumbles, the whole machine could stall. Pillar 2, youth movement, sink or swim. This is where things get fascinating. The Raiders' 2025 roster, it's young, bold, raw, and largely untested. Beyond Jeanty, you've got names like Darian Porter making waves in the secondary, Caleb Rogers battling for trench time, Jack Beck and Dante Thornton Jr., wideouts with flash but looking for substance. And on defense, players like Yakorian Bennett, Tyree Wilson, and Big Mike Meyers are still developing, still climbing. The Raiders aren't flooding the roster with expensive veterans. There's no Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen being parachuted in to fix things overnight. This is an internal build from the ground up. And it's a gamble. If these young players take the leap, if they show growth, resilience, and composure, this team becomes dangerous. But if the moment's too big, if the inexperience shows, it could be a frustrating fall. Pete Carroll's challenge? Turn promise into performance. And that starts in training camp, where reps, rotations, and leadership will decide who sinks and who swims. Pillar 3, the Geno Carroll experiment. Does lightning strike twice? Let's bring this all home. The heart of the Raiders' 2025 identity isn't just a rookie running back or a batch of young players trying to earn their stripes. It's the relationship between Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. These two already have history. We've seen them succeed together in Seattle. We've seen Geno earn a second chance, shake off the bust label, and lead a team to the playoffs. But this isn't Seattle. This isn't a comfortable reboot. This is Las Vegas, a franchise still searching for its next chapter, a city full of expectations, and a fan base that lives and breathes just win, baby. Carroll believes in Geno, that's clear. But belief must become results. Can Geno take command of this locker room? Can he be the voice that younger players rally behind? Can he win the close ones, the fourth quarter comebacks, and shake off the doubt that still lingers in some corners of Raider Nation? It's not about being flashy. It's not about trying to be Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. It's about consistency, command, clarity. If Carroll and Geno can get on the same page, with Chip Kelly dialing plays and Jeanty chewing up yardage, the Raiders could surprise a lot of people. But if it falls apart, then we're back to the same cycle, searching for identity, searching for answers, and stuck in the middle of the pack. The stakes are set. These aren't just storylines. These are the pillars of the 2025 Raiders. Jeanty's rise or pressure getting to him. The youth wave, flourishing or fading. The Carroll-Geno connection, reuniting for redemption or unraveling under expectations. The answers are coming. And the clock starts ticking on July 22nd when training camp begins. So Raider Nation, buckle up. This season, it's personal. More than a motto, can the Raiders finally live it? Commitment to excellence. Just win, baby. We've all seen those words on walls, on banners, on t-shirts. They're stitched into the identity of Raider Nation. But what do they actually mean in 2025? Because here's the truth. Slogans don't win football games. Execution does, leadership does, culture does. And now with Pete Carroll holding the clipboard and Geno Smith under center, the Raiders are being asked to prove those words matter again. Pete Carroll's final mission? Pete Carroll didn't come to Vegas to cash checks or relive his past. He came with a job, maybe the hardest of his legendary career, revive the Raiders. Not for a year, not for a flash, but for the long haul. He signed a 3-year deal with a team option for a 4th. That's the window. That's the clock ticking in the background of every practice, every film session, every Sunday. And when it's all said and done, when Carroll finally walks away to enjoy time with his grandkids or kick back in the sun, the question will echo. Did he leave this franchise better than he found it? Did he lay a foundation strong enough for the next coach to build on? Or did the rebuild stall once again in a desert of excuses? That's the test. That's the weight on Carroll's shoulders, and he knows it. The big 3 questions that define 2025. Let's keep it real. This season isn't just about excitement or potential. It's about answers. Clear, real answers. Here are the 3 questions that will define the Raiders in 2025. Can Ashton Jeanty rise above the hype? He's the centerpiece of the new offense. Explosive, young, talented. But talent alone doesn't cut it in the NFL. This league eats rookies alive. Can he be that guy, the one defenses fear, the one this franchise leans on? Can the youth movement grow fast enough? The Raiders are rolling with a young roster. Guys like Darian Porter, Dante Thornton Jr., Tyree Wilson, and Michael Mayer aren't just being asked to develop, they're being asked to contribute now. This is either the birth of a new core, or a season full of hard lessons. Can Pete Carroll and Geno Smith recreate the magic, this time in silver and black? They've done it before in Seattle, but Las Vegas is different. The noise is louder. The expectations are heavier, and the margin for error? Smaller than ever. And beyond that, the whole team has questions. Look, there are a dozen other valid storylines. Christian Wilkins, can he stay healthy and dominate the middle? Brock Bowers, will he take a year to leap? The offensive line, can they keep Geno clean? The secondary, can they hold up against Mahomes and Herbert? This isn't just a team looking for one breakout. This is a full-scale evaluation across every level of the roster. Raider Nation's voice, Sacktown Mark weighs in. Let's switch gears and hear from one of our own, Sacktown Mark. He called in to talk about the quarterback matchups the Raiders will face this season. Like many of you, he agreed. Geno Smith holds his own in most matchups. But when it comes to the AFC West, the pressure multiplies. In this division, Mark said, the quarterback position is always the battlefield, and right now, the Raiders have the most to prove. He's not wrong. Mahomes is still Mahomes. Herbert, despite the critics, can sling it. Even the Broncos are trying to figure out if they found their next guy. The Raiders? They're asking Gino to steady the ship, lead the huddle, and match those arms twice a year. Mark's take? If the Raiders want a real shot at the playoffs, they've got to go at least 3-3 in the division. Whether that's sweeping Denver, stealing one from LA, or catching Kansas City on a down week, they have to hold their own in the West. Otherwise, they're just playing catch-up. Final thought. So, here's where we stand. The slogans are cool. The history is legendary. The potential is real. But potential without execution means nothing. This season will test the Raiders' patience, toughness, leadership, and identity. And Raider Nation? You'll be right there, watching, reacting, judging, and believing. The next era isn't something you wait for. It's something you fight for. In the trenches, why division battles will define the Raiders' future. Let's stop sugarcoating it. The AFC West isn't just any division. It's a gauntlet. And for the Las Vegas Raiders, a team rebuilding its culture, testing its leadership, and leaning on youth, divisional games aren't just important. They're everything. Because here's the cold truth. If you can't hold your own in the West, you don't deserve a seat at the playoff table. Why division games are make or break. There's a cliche in football that says, take care of your division, and the rest will follow. But in 2025, that cliche feels more like a survival rule, especially for the Raiders. They're facing 3 franchises that all made the playoffs last year. 3 head coaches who might all wear gold jackets someday. 3 quarterbacks with the tools or the trajectory to tear apart any secondary in the league. So let's be honest, the Raiders don't have to dominate the division, but they do have to survive it. And that means, at minimum, a split. Go 3-3. Find a way, sweep Denver. Take 1 from LA. Push Kansas City to the edge. Just don't go 1-5 or 0-6. If you do that, even a wild card becomes a dream slipping away. Insight from Raider Nation. Sacktown Mark calls it straight. Raider Nation always keeps it real, and Sacktown Mark came through again with clarity and conviction. He laid it out clearly. The quarterback position is where this division stacks its chips, and the Raiders, they've still got the most to prove. Not because Geno Smith isn't capable, but because in a division full of stars and rising talents, Vegas still feels like the question mark. Mark's solution? Win 3 games in the West. That's the key to a wild card push. It's tough, but not impossible, and based on how this team is trending, it's not out of reach. Ohio Raider from the 419 fires back on the QB debate. Next up was a sharp message from Ohio Raider, and he didn't hold back. He drew a line in the sand and backed his quarterback. Week 9, give me Geno Smith over Bo Nix. He's a vet. He's been doing this since 2013. If we don't think Geno's better than the second-year guy, maybe we've got bigger problems. And look, he makes a valid point. While Nix had a strong rookie campaign, he's still learning the NFL. He's in a good system with Sean Payton, sure. But Geno? He's got the experience, the leadership, and now the responsibility. Does that mean Geno wins the head-to-head? That's up for debate, and we love debates around here. But it proves one thing: Raider Nation is watching closely. They expect results, not excuses. The battle of year 2, sophomore surge or sophomore slump. And this brings us to the bigger picture. It's not just about Bo Nix. It's about every young QB trying to prove year 1 wasn't a fluke. We've seen this before, a breakout rookie campaign followed by a dip. Will Jaden Daniels stumble in year 2? Will C.J. Stroud rebound after his own second-year struggles? Or will guys like Nix and Daniels take that next step, solidifying themselves as long-term problems for teams like the Raiders? The AFC West doesn't give second chances. It barely gives first ones. Final thoughts. A season defined by edges. This isn't a prediction game. It's not about wins and losses, not yet. It's about advantages. If Geno can outplay the opposing quarterback in 11 out of 17 games, as many fans now believe, then Vegas has a fighting chance. But those matchups aren't played on paper. They're settled in the red zone on third downs under pressure when it matters most. And in this division where playoff hopes can be buried by Halloween, every snap counts. Up next. We're not done. Raider Nation is still buzzing, and the feedback keeps coming in. Up next, we'll hear from Eric the Rocking Raider in Phoenix, who's got a few thoughts on the quarterback comparisons and where this team might be headed next. Strap in, the conversation's far from over. No more sweeps, Raiders ready to punch back in the AFC West. Let's face it, last season left a bitter taste. Watching the Raiders get swept in the AFC West? That wasn't just disappointing, it was a gut punch. But Eric the Rocking Raider nailed it in his call. That chapter is done. Vegas isn't going quietly this year. He's right, there's no way this team gets swept again. Not with Pete Carroll at the helm. Not with a roster that's younger, faster, and finally believing in its own potential. If the Raiders manage even a 2-4 split in division play and steal a game or 2 outside the AFC West, you're suddenly talking 10 wins and maybe a playoff ticket. And that's no fantasy. That's a realistic, grinded-out path that could actually happen. Talent versus wins. Why the quarterback breakdown matters. Now, to clear something up, because it's important. When we talked about the quarterback matchups, it wasn't a prediction on wins or losses. It was a who has the edge analysis. Week by week, head-to-head. Geno Smith versus every opposing quarterback on the schedule. It was about measuring where the Raiders finally have leverage, not handing out final records. Because if 2024 proved anything, it's that quarterback mismatches can sink a season before Halloween. This year, that feels different. Geno does give them a chance. And when John Middlecove said, "If you have a quarterback, you have a chance," that line stuck. That's what sparked the breakdown. That's what opened the door for optimism. Raider Nation brings the heat. First-time texters making noise. Next up, Zach from Orangevale, California, with one of the most passionate texts of the day. And listen, his message didn't just stand out, it lit a fire. "I have no problem with Geno showing fire. Let him cook. Football is emotional. He's a dog, and he should let that be known. Zach gets it. Leaders aren't quiet when the pressure hits, they rise. Geno's edge, his fire, his energy, it's not a bad look. It's what this locker room has needed, especially after seasons of passive leadership and quiet frustration." Zach even shared a personal gem. Before he got married, he made his wife sign a contract. Their first child will be a Raiders fan. No debate. No compromise. Now that's commitment. That's Raider bloodline thinking. And sure, it makes Sundays a little rocky in a split household with a Broncos fan, but as Zach said, God's got us. The Geno controversy. A 30-second clip doesn't tell the full story. Zach's take on the recent Geno Smith video also deserves some spotlight. We've all seen it, a quick clip from a tournament in Florida. Geno heated in a moment. Social media blew it up, but Zach was spot on. None of us know what was said on that field. Exactly. Context matters. One viral clip doesn't tell you who a man is. Geno's been a pro. He's been respected. One emotional moment doesn't erase that. And if we're being fair, we've seen much worse from far more celebrated quarterbacks. Leadership has fire, and fire sometimes flares up. Let's not judge a man by 30 seconds of noise. Let's see what he does in 60 minutes of football every week this fall. One final call. Kenny, the Raiders fan in Patriots country, we're wrapping this segment, but not before one final voice steps up. Kenny, a die-hard Raiders fan surrounded by Patriots loyalists, has a message, and you'll hear it next. But before we get to that, one thing is clear. The Raiders aren't just building a roster. They're building a belief system. They're forming an identity. And whether it's from California, Phoenix, Ohio, or even deep in enemy territory in New England, Raider Nation believes again. And this season, they're not asking for mercy. They're demanding respect. Trade rumors, financial reality, and the future of the Raiders' defense. Let's wrap up strong. Kenny, the die-hard Raiders fan deep in Patriots territory, called in with a bold idea that's been floating in the minds of a few fans lately. What if the Raiders made a move for TJ Watt? Now look, on paper, pairing Maxx, Crosby, and TJ Watt on the edges would be absolutely terrifying for any offensive line. You talk about pressure, game-wrecking pressure, every single down. Throw in Malcolm Koonce, shift Tyree Wilson inside, and suddenly that defensive front looks like a Madden cheat code. But let's get real for a second. The money doesn't add up, and that's the problem. The problem isn't just fit, it's financial logic. TJ Watt's next deal is going to flirt with $40 million per year. Maxx Crosby is already locked in at $35 million. It means you'd be investing over $75 million a season in 2 edge rushers. That's not just a lot. That's unsustainable, even for a contender, let alone a team still building a foundation. And remember, these guys aren't just any pass rushers. They're alpha dogs. Leaders. Maxx has put his blood into the shield. If you pay someone else more right after handing Maxx a major extension, how does that sit in the locker room? Not well. And general manager John Spytek knows that. That's why he got ahead of the market, locking up Crosby before guys like Micah Parsons, Danielle Hunter, or yes, TJ Watt reset the edge rusher market. That was a strategic move. And it told you exactly how the Raiders plan to manage their cap. Aggressive, but calculated. What about Trey Hendrickson? More realistic, but still complicated. Kenny also floated Trey Hendrickson as a trade option. Now that's interesting. Hendrickson's a proven sack artist. Consistent. Durable. Highly productive, even without a dominant teammate on the other edge. But he's also severely underpaid right now, $15 million a year, when his value is closer to $28 million and rising. If the Bengals can't keep him happy, yes, he could become available. But again, would the Raiders be willing to take on another major salary on the edge when they've already given Malcolm Koonce a $12 million deal and Tyree Wilson is still waiting in the wings? It's unlikely. Not impossible, but unlikely. Because this regime isn't just chasing names, they're building for balance. And that means trusting their current core to grow, especially younger guys like Wilson, who still have upside and much cheaper contracts. Smart spending wins in the long run. This entire discussion brings us back to one thing: building smart. Paying Maxx Crosby early was a masterstroke. By the time guys like Garrett and Parsons hit their new numbers, Max's deal suddenly looks like a discount. That's how championship front offices operate. They bet on the right guys at the right time. And it's also why splashing for another $40 million rusher, no matter how tempting, just doesn't align with the plan right now. It's not about star chasing anymore. It's about structure, cohesion, and building a defense that's deep, not just flashy. Raider Nation speaks, and the conversation's just getting started. Big shout out to Kenny, Zach, Eric, Ohio Raider, and Sacktown Mark. All of you brought real, thoughtful insights and questions. It's that kind of energy that makes Raider Nation different. Tomorrow's show? We'll dive into more feedback, starting with a smart message from Big Fish Raider, who had some strong opinions on the roster and training camp priorities. And stay tuned, we'll keep exploring the biggest question marks around the Silver and Black's identity heading into the 2025 season. In the meantime, take care of your people, hold tight to that Raider pride, and remember, just win, baby.